Heartland Season 20 could open with one of the biggest and most emotional surprises the series has ever delivered. After 6 long years of silence, Amy Fleming's life is about to change completely when something from the past suddenly finds its way back to her. For years, Amy has tried to move forward while carrying Ty Borden's memory with her. She has raised Lindy, continued working with horses, stayed close to her family, and slowly learned how to live with the enormous space Ty left behind. But in the first episode of Season 20, everything Amy thought she knew about those missing years will be questioned. And this time, it all begins with a simple note. The episode starts quietly, which honestly makes what comes next even more powerful. Amy is going through some old things around Heartland when she comes across something she definitely wasn't expecting to find. At first, it looks like an old piece of paper that has probably been sitting there for years. But the moment Amy recognizes the handwriting, she freezes. She knows that handwriting. It belongs to Ty. Now, obviously, finding an old note from Ty would normally mean that he is alive. Heartland is filled with memories of him, and Amy has probably come across Ty's belongings many times over the years. But there is something different about this particular message. The words seem to speak directly to everything Amy has been feeling lately, and more importantly, the note tells her not to give up hope. That one sentence is enough to bring back emotions Amy thought she had finally learned to control. At first, Amy tries to be realistic. 6 years have passed. She has spent all that time believing Ty is gone, and she knows how dangerous it would be to suddenly convince herself that an old letter means something more. Jack will probably notice immediately that something is bothering her, but Amy won't be ready to tell the family everything just yet. She needs to understand it herself first. And that leads Amy back to the old barn. This is where the story really begins to change. The barn has always been one of the most emotional locations in Heartland because so much of Amy and Ty's story happened there. Their relationship grew through their shared love of horses, and countless important moments between them took place around the ranch. So when Amy starts searching through the barn again, she isn't simply looking for another clue. She is walking directly back into a part of her life she spent years trying to make peace with. Then she finds the letter. This one is much more personal. Ty wrote it to Amy, and the message makes it clear that he never wanted her to lose hope in him. As Amy reads his words, memories begin rushing back. Their first years together, their arguments, their wedding, Lindy's birth, their life at Heartland. Everything suddenly feels close again. Amy has spent years learning how to remember Ty without allowing the grief to consume her. But now she has a completely different problem. What if those memories are no longer just memories? What if Ty is actually alive? Of course, Amy still needs proof. A letter can be old. It could have been misplaced for years. There are 100 explanations she could give herself, and Jack would probably remind her not to jump to conclusions. But Amy knows Ty better than almost anyone ever did, and something about the letter doesn't feel like a random discovery. Then Heartland gives her the clue that changes everything. Amy notices fresh horseshoe tracks near the barn. This is where I think viewers will immediately realize that the story is heading somewhere much bigger. Those tracks haven't been sitting there for years. Someone has recently been around the property, and whoever it is clearly knows Heartland well enough to move through the ranch without immediately being noticed. Amy follows the tracks, and eventually she discovers another note. But unlike the first letter, this one is new. And the message is simple. I'm coming home. At that moment, Amy doesn't need anyone to convince her anymore. She knows. Ty is coming back. Just imagine Amy standing there holding that note after spending 6 years believing the love of her life was gone forever. She probably reads those 3 words over and over again because her mind simply cannot process what her heart already understands. Fear, happiness, anger, confusion, and hope all hit her at once. And I think that's important because Ty's return shouldn't simply make Amy happy. There would also be questions. Huge questions. Where has he been? Why didn't he come home earlier? Why did Amy and Lindy have to spend 6 years without him? And most importantly, why was everyone allowed to believe that he was gone? But Amy won't have much time to think about those questions because the moment fans have imagined for years finally arrives. Ty Borden returns to Heartland. After 6 years away, Ty walks back onto the ranch. There doesn't need to be a huge speech when Amy first sees him. In fact, I think the scene works much better if neither of them knows what to say. Amy has imagined Ty in her memories thousands of times, but now he is actually standing in front of her. For a few seconds, she probably doesn't even move. Ty doesn't either. They just look at each other. Amy's first reaction may even be disbelief. She could walk toward him slowly, almost afraid that if she gets too close, the moment will disappear. But once she realizes he is really there, 6 years of emotions finally come out. Their reunion becomes one of those classic Heartland moments where words aren't really necessary. Amy embraces Ty, and everything she has carried since losing him suddenly comes to the surface. But this reunion isn't only about Amy. Jack seeing Ty again will be another incredibly emotional moment. Jack always had a special relationship with Ty. He watched him grow from a troubled young man into a husband, father, and important member of the Heartland family. Ty wasn't simply Amy's husband to Jack. He became family in his own right. So when Jack sees him standing at Heartland again, even Jack, a man who usually keeps his emotions under control, will struggle to understand what is happening. Lou will be shocked. The rest of the family will have questions. Nobody will understand how this is possible. But then comes the moment that could be even more emotional than Amy and Ty's reunion. Ty finally sees Lindy. This is where the 6-year absence becomes real. The little girl Ty remembers is no longer the same child standing in front of him. Lindy has grown up hearing stories about her father, seeing photographs of him, and understanding how important he was to Amy and everyone at Heartland. She knows who Ty Borden is, but knowing about your father and actually having him standing in front of you are two completely different things. Ty will probably be more nervous about meeting Lindy than anything else. He can face Amy's questions. He can explain himself to Jack. He can deal with whatever happened during those missing years. But how does he explain 6 years to his daughter? I think Ty will simply kneel down in front of her and allow Lindy to decide what happens next. He won't force anything. That would be very true to Ty's character. He will understand that Lindy needs time. And then maybe she recognizes something about him. Maybe it's his smile. Maybe it's something Amy told her. Maybe she simply looks at her mother and sees Amy crying. Then Lindy realizes this really is her dad. That first hug between Ty and Lindy would completely change the atmosphere at Heartland. Suddenly, this isn't only about somebody returning from the past. A family that had been separated for years is standing together again. Amy, Ty, and Lindy. For Amy, it would feel almost impossible. She spent years accepting that this exact moment could never happen, and now she is watching Ty hold their daughter again. But after the initial happiness fades, Heartland still has to deal with reality. Ty has been gone for 6 years. Amy has changed. Lindy has grown. The family has moved forward. And Ty himself won't be the same man who disappeared all those years ago. This is where Season 20 could become much more interesting than simply bringing Ty back and pretending nothing happened. Amy deserves answers, and I don't think she will accept Ty returning without demanding them. Their first serious conversation could happen later that night, away from everyone else. Maybe they return to the barn, the place where the entire mystery began. Amy finally asks the question she has been holding back all day. Why? Ty then has to explain where he has been, and why he stayed away. Whatever the explanation turns out to be, Amy's reaction won't be simple. She loves him. That much becomes obvious the second she sees him again. But love doesn't erase 6 years of pain. Amy had to raise Lindy without him. She had to rebuild her life. She had to wake up every morning believing Ty would never walk through that door again. So forgiveness cannot happen in 5 minutes. And honestly, it shouldn't. That could actually become one of the strongest parts of Season 20. Instead of focusing only on the shock of Ty being alive, the story could focus on what happens after the miracle. How do Amy and Ty become Amy and Ty again? Can they? That question is far more interesting. Ty may want his old life back, but he will quickly realize there is no old life waiting for him. There is only the life Amy has built in his absence. He will need to earn his place in it. The same applies to Lindy. Ty is her father, but emotionally they will still need to build a relationship. He missed years of her childhood, and there is no way to simply recover that time. What he can do is make sure he doesn't miss what comes next. I can already imagine Ty spending time with Lindy around the horses, teaching her little things and slowly discovering parts of her personality that remind him of Amy and maybe even himself. Those quieter scenes could become some of the most emotional moments of the entire season. And Amy will be watching all of it. At first, she may keep some distance because she is still protecting herself. She has already lost Ty once. Allowing herself to completely believe he is back means becoming vulnerable all over again. But slowly, things will begin to feel familiar. Ty helping around the barn. Jack giving him advice whether he asked for it or not. Lindy following him around. Amy and Ty working with a horse together and realizing that the connection they once had never completely disappeared. That's when Amy will understand something important. Their old life is gone, but that doesn't mean their story is over. They can start again. And I think that is exactly what the final part of the episode should be about. Amy and Ty finally sit down and talk honestly about everything. The pain, the lost years, the anger, and the possibility of forgiveness. Ty doesn't ask Amy to pretend nothing happened. Instead, he acknowledges what his absence did to her. Amy doesn't immediately forget the pain either, but she chooses to listen. And sometimes, especially in Heartland, that is where healing begins. By the end of the episode, we could see Amy, Ty, and Lindy together at Heartland as the sun begins to set over the ranch. Jack watches them from a distance, realizing that something he never thought he would see again has happened right in front of him. The family is together. Not exactly the way they were 6 years ago. They are older. They have scars. They have questions that still need answers. But they are together. Ty's return wouldn't erase everything Amy experienced after losing him, and it shouldn't. Instead, it would add another chapter to a story that viewers thought had already ended. That's what would make this storyline so powerful. Heartland has always been a show about healing. Horses arrive at the ranch carrying trauma, families go through loss, relationships break down, and characters make mistakes. But somehow, the story always finds its way back to second chances. Ty returning after 6 years would be the biggest second chance Heartland has ever told. Amy would finally have the opportunity to confront the past instead of simply remembering it. Lindy would have the chance to know her father for herself rather than through stories. Jack would get back someone he once considered a son. And Ty would have the difficult task of proving that coming home is about much more than simply walking back through the gates of Heartland. The final message of the episode would be simple. Surviving the past doesn't mean you have to live inside it forever. Amy and Ty have both changed, but the connection between them survived time, distance, and unimaginable pain. Now they have to decide what to do with that connection. And as they stand together at Heartland with Lindy between them, I think Amy finally understands that this isn't about recreating the life they lost. It's about building something new. After 6 years of silence, one old letter started everything. Fresh horseshoe tracks turned hope into something real. 3 simple words, "I'm coming home," changed Amy Fleming's world forever. And when Ty Borden finally returns to Heartland, the biggest surprise isn't simply that he survived. It's that after everything Amy and Ty have been through, their story still isn't finished. What do you guys think about this subject? I welcome your thoughts in the comments. For more such videos, you can subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like our video. See you again, goodbye. Heartland Season 20 could open with one of the biggest and most emotional surprises the series has ever delivered. After 6 long years of silence, Amy Fleming's life is about to change completely when something from the past suddenly finds its way back to her. For years, Amy has tried to move forward while carrying Ty Borden's memory with her. She has raised Lindy, continued working with horses, stayed close to her family, and slowly learned how to live with the enormous space Ty left behind. But in the first episode of Season 20, everything Amy thought she knew about those missing years will be questioned. And this time, it all begins with a simple note. The episode starts quietly, which honestly makes what comes next even more powerful. Amy is going through some old things around Heartland when she comes across something she definitely wasn't expecting to find. At first, it looks like an old piece of paper that has probably been sitting there for years. But the moment Amy recognizes the handwriting, she freezes. She knows that handwriting. It belongs to Ty. Now, obviously, finding an old note from Ty would normally mean that he is alive. Heartland is filled with memories of him, and Amy has probably come across Ty's belongings many times over the years. But there is something different about this particular message. The words seem to speak directly to everything Amy has been feeling lately, and more importantly, the note tells her not to give up hope. That one sentence is enough to bring back emotions Amy thought she had finally learned to control. At first, Amy tries to be realistic. 6 years have passed. She has spent all that time believing Ty is gone, and she knows how dangerous it would be to suddenly convince herself that an old letter means something more. Jack will probably notice immediately that something is bothering her, but Amy won't be ready to tell the family everything just yet. She needs to understand it herself first. And that leads Amy back to the old barn. This is where the story really begins to change. The barn has always been one of the most emotional locations in Heartland because so much of Amy and Ty's story happened there. Their relationship grew through their shared love of horses, and countless important moments between them took place around the ranch. So when Amy starts searching through the barn again, she isn't simply looking for another clue. She is walking directly back into a part of her life she spent years trying to make peace with. Then she finds the letter. This one is much more personal. Ty wrote it to Amy, and the message makes it clear that he never wanted her to lose hope in him. As Amy reads his words, memories begin rushing back. Their first years together, their arguments, their wedding, Lindy's birth, their life at Heartland. Everything suddenly feels close again. Amy has spent years learning how to remember Ty without allowing the grief to consume her. But now she has a completely different problem. What if those memories are no longer just memories? What if Ty is actually alive? Of course, Amy still needs proof. A letter can be old. It could have been misplaced for years. There are 100 explanations she could give herself, and Jack would probably remind her not to jump to conclusions. But Amy knows Ty better than almost anyone ever did, and something about the letter doesn't feel like a random discovery. Then Heartland gives her the clue that changes everything. Amy notices fresh horseshoe tracks near the barn. This is where I think viewers will immediately realize that the story is heading somewhere much bigger. Those tracks haven't been sitting there for years. Someone has recently been around the property, and whoever it is clearly knows Heartland well enough to move through the ranch without immediately being noticed. Amy follows the tracks, and eventually she discovers another note. But unlike the first letter, this one is new. And the message is simple. I'm coming home. At that moment, Amy doesn't need anyone to convince her anymore. She knows. Ty is coming back. Just imagine Amy standing there holding that note after spending 6 years believing the love of her life was gone forever. She probably reads those 3 words over and over again because her mind simply cannot process what her heart already understands. Fear, happiness, anger, confusion, and hope all hit her at once. And I think that's important because Ty's return shouldn't simply make Amy happy. There would also be questions. Huge questions. Where has he been? Why didn't he come home earlier? Why did Amy and Lindy have to spend 6 years without him? And most importantly, why was everyone allowed to believe that he was gone? But Amy won't have much time to think about those questions because the moment fans have imagined for years finally arrives. Ty Borden returns to Heartland. After 6 years away, Ty walks back onto the ranch. There doesn't need to be a huge speech when Amy first sees him. In fact, I think the scene works much better if neither of them knows what to say. Amy has imagined Ty in her memories thousands of times, but now he is actually standing in front of her. For a few seconds, she probably doesn't even move. Ty doesn't either. They just look at each other. Amy's first reaction may even be disbelief. She could walk toward him slowly, almost afraid that if she gets too close, the moment will disappear. But once she realizes he is really there, 6 years of emotions finally come out. Their reunion becomes one of those classic Heartland moments where words aren't really necessary. Amy embraces Ty, and everything she has carried since losing him suddenly comes to the surface. But this reunion isn't only about Amy. Jack seeing Ty again will be another incredibly emotional moment. Jack always had a special relationship with Ty. He watched him grow from a troubled young man into a husband, father, and important member of the Heartland family. Ty wasn't simply Amy's husband to Jack. He became family in his own right. So when Jack sees him standing at Heartland again, even Jack, a man who usually keeps his emotions under control, will struggle to understand what is happening. Lou will be shocked. The rest of the family will have questions. Nobody will understand how this is possible. But then comes the moment that could be even more emotional than Amy and Ty's reunion. Ty finally sees Lindy. This is where the 6-year absence becomes real. The little girl Ty remembers is no longer the same child standing in front of him. Lindy has grown up hearing stories about her father, seeing photographs of him, and understanding how important he was to Amy and everyone at Heartland. She knows who Ty Borden is, but knowing about your father and actually having him standing in front of you are two completely different things. Ty will probably be more nervous about meeting Lindy than anything else. He can face Amy's questions. He can explain himself to Jack. He can deal with whatever happened during those missing years. But how does he explain 6 years to his daughter? I think Ty will simply kneel down in front of her and allow Lindy to decide what happens next. He won't force anything. That would be very true to Ty's character. He will understand that Lindy needs time. And then maybe she recognizes something about him. Maybe it's his smile. Maybe it's something Amy told her. Maybe she simply looks at her mother and sees Amy crying. Then Lindy realizes this really is her dad. That first hug between Ty and Lindy would completely change the atmosphere at Heartland. Suddenly, this isn't only about somebody returning from the past. A family that had been separated for years is standing together again. Amy, Ty, and Lindy. For Amy, it would feel almost impossible. She spent years accepting that this exact moment could never happen, and now she is watching Ty hold their daughter again. But after the initial happiness fades, Heartland still has to deal with reality. Ty has been gone for 6 years. Amy has changed. Lindy has grown. The family has moved forward. And Ty himself won't be the same man who disappeared all those years ago. This is where Season 20 could become much more interesting than simply bringing Ty back and pretending nothing happened. Amy deserves answers, and I don't think she will accept Ty returning without demanding them. Their first serious conversation could happen later that night, away from everyone else. Maybe they return to the barn, the place where the entire mystery began. Amy finally asks the question she has been holding back all day. Why? Ty then has to explain where he has been, and why he stayed away. Whatever the explanation turns out to be, Amy's reaction won't be simple. She loves him. That much becomes obvious the second she sees him again. But love doesn't erase 6 years of pain. Amy had to raise Lindy without him. She had to rebuild her life. She had to wake up every morning believing Ty would never walk through that door again. So forgiveness cannot happen in 5 minutes. And honestly, it shouldn't. That could actually become one of the strongest parts of Season 20. Instead of focusing only on the shock of Ty being alive, the story could focus on what happens after the miracle. How do Amy and Ty become Amy and Ty again? Can they? That question is far more interesting. Ty may want his old life back, but he will quickly realize there is no old life waiting for him. There is only the life Amy has built in his absence. He will need to earn his place in it. The same applies to Lindy. Ty is her father, but emotionally they will still need to build a relationship. He missed years of her childhood, and there is no way to simply recover that time. What he can do is make sure he doesn't miss what comes next. I can already imagine Ty spending time with Lindy around the horses, teaching her little things and slowly discovering parts of her personality that remind him of Amy and maybe even himself. Those quieter scenes could become some of the most emotional moments of the entire season. And Amy will be watching all of it. At first, she may keep some distance because she is still protecting herself. She has already lost Ty once. Allowing herself to completely believe he is back means becoming vulnerable all over again. But slowly, things will begin to feel familiar. Ty helping around the barn. Jack giving him advice whether he asked for it or not. Lindy following him around. Amy and Ty working with a horse together and realizing that the connection they once had never completely disappeared. That's when Amy will understand something important. Their old life is gone, but that doesn't mean their story is over. They can start again. And I think that is exactly what the final part of the episode should be about. Amy and Ty finally sit down and talk honestly about everything: the pain, the lost years, the anger, and the possibility of forgiveness. Ty doesn't ask Amy to pretend nothing happened. Instead, he acknowledges what his absence did to her. Amy doesn't immediately forget the pain either, but she chooses to listen. And sometimes, especially in Heartland, that is where healing begins. By the end of the episode, we could see Amy, Ty, and Lindy together at Heartland as the sun begins to set over the ranch. Jack watches them from a distance, realizing that something he never thought he would see again has happened right in front of him. The family is together. Not exactly the way they were 6 years ago. They are older. They have scars. They have questions that still need answers. But they are together. Ty's return wouldn't erase everything Amy experienced after losing him, and it shouldn't. Instead, it would add another chapter to a story that viewers thought had already ended. That's what would make this storyline so powerful. Heartland has always been a show about healing. Horses arrive at the ranch carrying trauma, families go through loss, relationships break down, and characters make mistakes. But somehow, the story always finds its way back to second chances. Ty returning after 6 years would be the biggest second chance Heartland has ever told. Amy would finally have the opportunity to confront the past instead of simply remembering it. Lindy would have the chance to know her father for herself rather than through stories. Jack would get back someone he once considered a son. And Ty would have the difficult task of proving that coming home is about much more than simply walking back through the gates of Heartland. The final message of the episode would be simple: surviving the past doesn't mean you have to live inside it forever. Amy and Ty have both changed, but the connection between them survived time, distance, and unimaginable pain. Now they have to decide what to do with that connection. And as they stand together at Heartland with Lindy between them, I think Amy finally understands that this isn't about recreating the life they lost. It's about building something new. After 6 years of silence, one old letter started everything. Fresh horseshoe tracks turned hope into something real. 3 simple words, "I'm coming home," changed Amy Fleming's world forever. And when Ty Borden finally returns to Heartland, the biggest surprise isn't simply that he survived. It's that after everything Amy and Ty have been through, their story still isn't finished. What do you guys think about this subject? I welcome your thoughts in the comments. For more such videos, you can subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like our video. See you again, goodbye. Heartland Season 20 could open with one of the biggest and most emotional surprises the series has ever delivered. After 6 long years of silence, Amy Fleming's life is about to change completely when something from the past suddenly finds its way back to her. For years, Amy has tried to move forward while carrying Ty Borden's memory with her. She has raised Lindy, continued working with horses, stayed close to her family, and slowly learned how to live with the enormous space Ty left behind. But in the first episode of Season 20, everything Amy thought she knew about those missing years will be questioned. And this time, it all begins with a simple note. The episode starts quietly, which honestly makes what comes next even more powerful. Amy is going through some old things around Heartland when she comes across something she definitely wasn't expecting to find. At first, it looks like an old piece of paper that has probably been sitting there for years. But the moment Amy recognizes the handwriting, she freezes. She knows that handwriting, it belongs to Ty. Now, obviously, finding an old note from Ty would normally mean that he is alive. Heartland is filled with memories of him, and Amy has probably come across Ty's belongings many times over the years. But there is something different about this particular message. The words seem to speak directly to everything Amy has been feeling lately, and more importantly, the note tells her not to give up hope. That one sentence is enough to bring back emotions Amy thought she had finally learned to control. At first, Amy tries to be realistic. 6 years have passed. She has spent all that time believing Ty is gone, and she knows how dangerous it would be to suddenly convince herself that an old letter means something more. Jack will probably notice immediately that something is bothering her, but Amy won't be ready to tell the family everything just yet. She needs to understand it herself first. And that leads Amy back to the old barn. This is where the story really begins to change. The barn has always been one of the most emotional locations in Heartland because so much of Amy and Ty's story happened there. Their relationship grew through their shared love of horses, and countless important moments between them took place around the ranch. So when Amy starts searching through the barn again, she isn't simply looking for another clue. She is walking directly back into a part of her life she spent years trying to make peace with. Then she finds the letter. This one is much more personal. Ty wrote it to Amy, and the message makes it clear that he never wanted her to lose hope in him. As Amy reads his words, memories begin rushing back. Their first years together, their arguments, their wedding, Lindy's birth, their life at Heartland. Everything suddenly feels close again. Amy has spent years learning how to remember Ty without allowing the grief to consume her. But now she has a completely different problem. What if those memories are no longer just memories? What if Ty is actually alive? Of course, Amy still needs proof. A letter can be old. It could have been misplaced for years. There are 100 explanations she could give herself, and Jack would probably remind her not to jump to conclusions. But Amy knows Ty better than almost anyone ever did, and something about the letter doesn't feel like a random discovery. Then Heartland gives her the clue that changes everything. Amy notices fresh horseshoe tracks near the barn. This is where I think viewers will immediately realize that the story is heading somewhere much bigger. Those tracks haven't been sitting there for years. Someone has recently been around the property, and whoever it is clearly knows Heartland well enough to move through the ranch without immediately being noticed. Amy follows the tracks, and eventually she discovers another note. But unlike the first letter, this one is new. And the message is simple. I'm coming home. At that moment, Amy doesn't need anyone to convince her anymore. She knows. Ty is coming back. Just imagine Amy standing there holding that note after spending 6 years believing the love of her life was gone forever. She probably reads those 3 words over and over again because her mind simply cannot process what her heart already understands. Fear, happiness, anger, confusion, and hope all hit her at once. And I think that's important because Ty's return shouldn't simply make Amy happy. There would also be questions. Huge questions. Where has he been? Why didn't he come home earlier? Why did Amy and Lindy have to spend 6 years without him? And most importantly, why was everyone allowed to believe that he was gone? But Amy won't have much time to think about those questions because the moment fans have imagined for years finally arrives. Ty Borden returns to Heartland. After 6 years away, Ty walks back onto the ranch. There doesn't need to be a huge speech when Amy first sees him. In fact, I think the scene works much better if neither of them knows what to say. Amy has imagined Ty in her memories thousands of times, but now he is actually standing in front of her. For a few seconds, she probably doesn't even move. Ty doesn't either. They just look at each other. Amy's first reaction may even be disbelief. She could walk toward him slowly, almost afraid that if she gets too close, the moment will disappear. But once she realizes he is really there, 6 years of emotions finally come out. Their reunion becomes one of those classic Heartland moments where words aren't really necessary. Amy embraces Ty, and everything she has carried since losing him suddenly comes to the surface. But this reunion isn't only about Amy. Jack seeing Ty again will be another incredibly emotional moment. Jack always had a special relationship with Ty. He watched him grow from a troubled young man into a husband, father, and important member of the Heartland family. Ty wasn't simply Amy's husband to Jack. He became family in his own right. So when Jack sees him standing at Heartland again, even Jack, a man who usually keeps his emotions under control, will struggle to understand what is happening. Lou will be shocked. The rest of the family will have questions. Nobody will understand how this is possible. But then comes the moment that could be even more emotional than Amy and Ty's reunion. Ty finally sees Lindy. This is where the 6-year absence becomes real. The little girl Ty remembers is no longer the same child standing in front of him. Lindy has grown up hearing stories about her father, seeing photographs of him, and understanding how important he was to Amy and everyone at Heartland. She knows who Ty Borden is, but knowing about your father and actually having him standing in front of you are 2 completely different things. Ty will probably be more nervous about meeting Lindy than anything else. He can face Amy's questions. He can explain himself to Jack. He can deal with whatever happened during those missing years. But how does he explain 6 years to his daughter? I think Ty will simply kneel down in front of her and allow Lindy to decide what happens next. He won't force anything. That would be very true to Ty's character. He will understand that Lindy needs time. And then maybe she recognizes something about him. Maybe it's his smile. Maybe it's something Amy told her. Maybe she simply looks at her mother and sees Amy crying. Then Lindy realizes this really is her dad. That first hug between Ty and Lindy would completely change the atmosphere at Heartland. Suddenly, this isn't only about somebody returning from the past. A family that had been separated for years is standing together again. Amy, Ty, and Lindy. For Amy, it would feel almost impossible. She spent years accepting that this exact moment could never happen, and now she is watching Ty hold their daughter again. But after the initial happiness fades, Heartland still has to deal with reality. Ty has been gone for 6 years. Amy has changed. Lindy has grown. The family has moved forward. And Ty himself won't be the same man who disappeared all those years ago. This is where Season 20 could become much more interesting than simply bringing Ty back and pretending nothing happened. Amy deserves answers, and I don't think she will accept Ty returning without demanding them. Their first serious conversation could happen later that night, away from everyone else. Maybe they return to the barn, the place where the entire mystery began. Amy finally asks the question she has been holding back all day. Why? Ty then has to explain where he has been and why he stayed away. Whatever the explanation turns out to be, Amy's reaction won't be simple. She loves him. That much becomes obvious the second she sees him again. But love doesn't erase 6 years of pain. Amy had to raise Lindy without him. She had to rebuild her life. She had to wake up every morning believing Ty would never walk through that door again. So forgiveness cannot happen in 5 minutes. And honestly, it shouldn't. That could actually become one of the strongest parts of Season 20. Instead of focusing only on the shock of Ty being alive, the story could focus on what happens after the miracle. How do Amy and Ty become Amy and Ty again? Can they? That question is far more interesting. Ty may want his old life back, but he will quickly realize there is no old life waiting for him. There is only the life Amy has built in his absence. He will need to earn his place in it. The same applies to Lindy. Ty is her father, but emotionally they will still need to build a relationship. He missed years of her childhood, and there is no way to simply recover that time. What he can do is make sure he doesn't miss what comes next. I can already imagine Ty spending time with Lindy around the horses, teaching her little things and slowly discovering parts of her personality that remind him of Amy and maybe even himself. Those quieter scenes could become some of the most emotional moments of the entire season. And Amy will be watching all of it. At first, she may keep some distance because she is still protecting herself. She has already lost Ty once. Allowing herself to completely believe he is back means becoming vulnerable all over again. But slowly, things will begin to feel familiar. Ty helping around the barn. Jack giving him advice whether he asked for it or not. Lindy following him around. Amy and Ty working with a horse together and realizing that the connection they once had never completely disappeared. That's when Amy will understand something important. Their old life is gone, but that doesn't mean their story is over. They can start again. And I think that is exactly what the final part of the episode should be about. Amy and Ty finally sit down and talk honestly about everything. The pain, the lost years, the anger, and the possibility of forgiveness. Ty doesn't ask Amy to pretend nothing happened. Instead, he acknowledges what his absence did to her. Amy doesn't immediately forget the pain either, but she chooses to listen. And sometimes, especially in Heartland, that is where healing begins. By the end of the episode, we could see Amy, Ty, and Lindy together at Heartland as the sun begins to set over the ranch. Jack watches them from a distance, realizing that something he never thought he would see again has happened right in front of him. The family is together. Not exactly the way they were 6 years ago. They are older. They have scars. They have questions that still need answers. But they are together. Ty's return wouldn't erase everything Amy experienced after losing him, and it shouldn't. Instead, it would add another chapter to a story that viewers thought had already ended. That's what would make this storyline so powerful. Heartland has always been a show about healing. Horses arrive at the ranch carrying trauma, families go through loss, relationships break down, and characters make mistakes. But somehow, the story always finds its way back to second chances. Ty returning after 6 years would be the biggest second chance Heartland has ever told. Amy would finally have the opportunity to confront the past instead of simply remembering it. Lindy would have the chance to know her father for herself rather than through stories. Jack would get back someone he once considered a son. And Ty would have the difficult task of proving that coming home is about much more than simply walking back through the gates of Heartland. The final message of the episode would be simple: surviving the past doesn't mean you have to live inside it forever. Amy and Ty have both changed, but the connection between them survived time, distance, and unimaginable pain. Now they have to decide what to do with that connection. And as they stand together at Heartland with Lindy between them, I think Amy finally understands that this isn't about recreating the life they lost. It's about building something new. After 6 years of silence, one old letter started everything. Fresh horseshoe tracks turned hope into something real. 3 simple words, "I'm coming home," changed Amy Fleming's world forever. And when Ty Borden finally returns to Heartland, the biggest surprise isn't simply that he survived. It's that after everything Amy and Ty have been through, their story still isn't finished. What do you guys think about this subject? I welcome your thoughts in the comments. For more such videos, you can subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like our video. See you again, goodbye. Heartland Season 20 could open with one of the biggest and most emotional surprises the series has ever delivered. After 6 long years of silence, Amy Fleming's life is about to change completely when something from the past suddenly finds its way back to her. For years, Amy has tried to move forward while carrying Ty Borden's memory with her. She has raised Lindy, continued working with horses, stayed close to her family, and slowly learned how to live with the enormous space Ty left behind. But in the first episode of Season 20, everything Amy thought she knew about those missing years will be questioned. And this time, it all begins with a simple note. The episode starts quietly, which honestly makes what comes next even more powerful. Amy is going through some old things around Heartland when she comes across something she definitely wasn't expecting to find. At first, it looks like an old piece of paper that has probably been sitting there for years. But the moment Amy recognizes the handwriting, she freezes. She knows that handwriting. It belongs to Ty. Now, obviously, finding an old note from Ty would normally mean that he is alive. Heartland is filled with memories of him, and Amy has probably come across Ty's belongings many times over the years. But there is something different about this particular message. The words seem to speak directly to everything Amy has been feeling lately, and more importantly, the note tells her not to give up hope. That one sentence is enough to bring back emotions Amy thought she had finally learned to control. At first, Amy tries to be realistic. 6 years have passed. She has spent all that time believing Ty is gone, and she knows how dangerous it would be to suddenly convince herself that an old letter means something more. Jack will probably notice immediately that something is bothering her, but Amy won't be ready to tell the family everything just yet. She needs to understand it herself first. And that leads Amy back to the old barn. This is where the story really begins to change. The barn has always been one of the most emotional locations in Heartland because so much of Amy and Ty's story happened there. Their relationship grew through their shared love of horses, and countless important moments between them took place around the ranch. So when Amy starts searching through the barn again, she isn't simply looking for another clue. She is walking directly back into a part of her life she spent years trying to make peace with. Then she finds the letter. This one is much more personal. Ty wrote it to Amy, and the message makes it clear that he never wanted her to lose hope in him. As Amy reads his words, memories begin rushing back. Their first years together, their arguments, their wedding, Lindy's birth, their life at Heartland, everything suddenly feels close again. Amy has spent years learning how to remember Ty without allowing the grief to consume her. But now she has a completely different problem. What if those memories are no longer just memories? What if Ty is actually alive? Of course, Amy still needs proof. A letter can be old. It could have been misplaced for years. There are 100 explanations she could give herself, and Jack would probably remind her not to jump to conclusions. But Amy knows Ty better than almost anyone ever did, and something about the letter doesn't feel like a random discovery. Then Heartland gives her the clue that changes everything. Amy notices fresh horseshoe tracks near the barn. This is where I think viewers will immediately realize that the story is heading somewhere much bigger. Those tracks haven't been sitting there for years. Someone has recently been around the property, and whoever it is clearly knows Heartland well enough to move through the ranch without immediately being noticed. Amy follows the tracks, and eventually she discovers another note. But unlike the first letter, this one is new. And the message is simple. I'm coming home. At that moment, Amy doesn't need anyone to convince her anymore. She knows. Ty is coming back. Just imagine Amy standing there holding that note after spending 6 years, believing the love of her life was gone forever. She probably reads those 3 words over and over again because her mind simply cannot process what her heart already understands. Fear, happiness, anger, confusion, and hope all hit her at once. And I think that's important because Ty's return shouldn't simply make Amy happy. There would also be questions. Huge questions. Where has he been? Why didn't he come home earlier? Why did Amy and Lindy have to spend 6 years without him? And most importantly, why was everyone allowed to believe that he was gone? But Amy won't have much time to think about those questions because the moment fans have imagined for years finally arrives. Ty Borden returns to Heartland. After 6 years away, Ty walks back onto the ranch. There doesn't need to be a huge speech when Amy first sees him. In fact, I think the scene works much better if neither of them knows what to say. Amy has imagined Ty in her memories thousands of times, but now he is actually standing in front of her. For a few seconds, she probably doesn't even move. Ty doesn't either. They just look at each other. Amy's first reaction may even be disbelief. She could walk toward him slowly, almost afraid that if she gets too close, the moment will disappear. But once she realizes he is really there, 6 years of emotions finally come out. Their reunion becomes one of those classic Heartland moments where words aren't really necessary. Amy embraces Ty, and everything she has carried since losing him suddenly comes to the surface. But this reunion isn't only about Amy. Jack seeing Ty again will be another incredibly emotional moment. Jack always had a special relationship with Ty. He watched him grow from a troubled young man into a husband, father, and important member of the Heartland family. Ty wasn't simply Amy's husband to Jack. He became family in his own right. So when Jack sees him standing at Heartland again, even Jack, a man who usually keeps his emotions under control, will struggle to understand what is happening. Lou will be shocked. The rest of the family will have questions. Nobody will understand how this is possible. But then comes the moment that could be even more emotional than Amy and Ty's reunion. Ty finally sees Lindy. This is where the 6-year absence becomes real. The little girl Ty remembers is no longer the same child standing in front of him. Lindy has grown up hearing stories about her father, seeing photographs of him, and understanding how important he was to Amy and everyone at Heartland. She knows who Ty Borden is, but knowing about your father and actually having him standing in front of you are 2 completely different things. Ty will probably be more nervous about meeting Lindy than anything else. He can face Amy's questions. He can explain himself to Jack. He can deal with whatever happened during those missing years. But how does he explain 6 years to his daughter? I think Ty will simply kneel down in front of her and allow Lindy to decide what happens next. He won't force anything. That would be very true to Ty's character. He will understand that Lindy needs time. And then maybe she recognizes something about him. Maybe it's his smile. Maybe it's something Amy told her. Maybe she simply looks at her mother and sees Amy crying. Then Lindy realizes this really is her dad. That first hug between Ty and Lindy would completely change the atmosphere at Heartland. Suddenly, this isn't only about somebody returning from the past. A family that had been separated for years is standing together again. Amy, Ty, and Lindy. For Amy, it would feel almost impossible. She spent years accepting that this exact moment could never happen, and now she is watching Ty hold their daughter again. But after the initial happiness fades, Heartland still has to deal with reality. Ty has been gone for 6 years. Amy has changed. Lindy has grown. The family has moved forward. And Ty himself won't be the same man who disappeared all those years ago. This is where Season 20 could become much more interesting than simply bringing Ty back and pretending nothing happened. Amy deserves answers, and I don't think she will accept Ty returning without demanding them. Their first serious conversation could happen later that night, away from everyone else. Maybe they return to the barn, the place where the entire mystery began. Amy finally asks the question she has been holding back all day. Why? Ty then has to explain where he has been and why he stayed away. Whatever the explanation turns out to be, Amy's reaction won't be simple. She loves him. That much becomes obvious the second she sees him again. But love doesn't erase 6 years of pain. Amy had to raise Lindy without him. She had to rebuild her life. She had to wake up every morning believing Ty would never walk through that door again. So forgiveness cannot happen in 5 minutes. And honestly, it shouldn't. That could actually become one of the strongest parts of Season 20. Instead of focusing only on the shock of Ty being alive, the story could focus on what happens after the miracle. How do Amy and Ty become Amy and Ty again? Can they? That question is far more interesting. Ty may want his old life back, but he will quickly realize there is no old life waiting for him. There is only the life Amy has built in his absence. He will need to earn his place in it. The same applies to Lindy. Ty is her father, but emotionally they will still need to build a relationship. He missed years of her childhood, and there is no way to simply recover that time. What he can do is make sure he doesn't miss what comes next. I can already imagine Ty spending time with Lindy around the horses, teaching her little things and slowly discovering parts of her personality that remind him of Amy and maybe even himself. Those quieter scenes could become some of the most emotional moments of the entire season. And Amy will be watching all of it. At first, she may keep some distance because she is still protecting herself. She has already lost Ty once. Allowing herself to completely believe he is back means becoming vulnerable all over again. But slowly, things will begin to feel familiar. Ty helping around the barn. Jack giving him advice whether he asked for it or not. Lindy following him around. Amy and Ty working with a horse together and realizing that the connection they once had never completely disappeared. That's when Amy will understand something important. Their old life is gone, but that doesn't mean their story is over. They can start again. And I think that is exactly what the final part of the episode should be about. Amy and Ty finally sit down and talk honestly about everything. The pain, the lost years, the anger, and the possibility of forgiveness. Ty doesn't ask Amy to pretend nothing happened. Instead, he acknowledges what his absence did to her. Amy doesn't immediately forget the pain either, but she chooses to listen. And sometimes, especially in Heartland, that is where healing begins. By the end of the episode, we could see Amy, Ty, and Lindy together at Heartland as the sun begins to set over the ranch. Jack watches them from a distance, realizing that something he never thought he would see again has happened right in front of him. The family is together. Not exactly the way they were 6 years ago. They are older. They have scars. They have questions that still need answers. But they are together. Ty's return wouldn't erase everything Amy experienced after losing him, and it shouldn't. Instead, it would add another chapter to a story that viewers thought had already ended. That's what would make this storyline so powerful. Heartland has always been a show about healing. Horses arrive at the ranch carrying trauma, families go through loss, relationships break down, and characters make mistakes. But somehow, the story always finds its way back to second chances. Ty returning after 6 years would be the biggest second chance Heartland has ever told. Amy would finally have the opportunity to confront the past instead of simply remembering it. Lindy would have the chance to know her father for herself rather than through stories. Jack would get back someone he once considered a son. And Ty would have the difficult task of proving that coming home is about much more than simply walking back through the gates of Heartland. The final message of the episode would be simple: surviving the past doesn't mean you have to live inside it forever. Amy and Ty have both changed, but the connection between them survived time, distance, and unimaginable pain. Now they have to decide what to do with that connection. And as they stand together at Heartland with Lindy between them, I think Amy finally understands that this isn't about recreating the life they lost. It's about building something new. After 6 years of silence, one old letter started everything. Fresh horseshoe tracks turned hope into something real. 3 simple words, "I'm coming home," changed Amy Fleming's world forever. And when Ty Borden finally returns to Heartland, the biggest surprise isn't simply that he survived. It's that after everything Amy and Ty have been through, their story still isn't finished. What do you guys think about this subject? I welcome your thoughts in the comments. For more such videos, you can subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like our video. See you again, goodbye.